Right. Can you tell me where you're located?
Sure, San Antonio, Texas.
Okay, fantastic. Well, how did you find out about what I do? And uh, maybe you participated in our recent World Tai Chi and Qigong Summit, or?
Yeah, exactly right. So, Julie Kramer was my entree into Qigong about a year ago.
Oh,
I've got,
fantastic.
yeah. Um, and then I've joined her Radiant Shinty and have been introduced to a couple other teachers. And
Mhm.
um,
Which
so
ones?
very, it's been real helpful for me.
Nice. Which other teachers did you get introduced to?
James Saper, he's in Canada. He's he I guess practices traditional Chinese medicine, but he also teaches um, forms of Tai Chi. I don't know all the terms, but he seems to seems like a physics teacher teaching me basic math.
Okay.
Um, but at any rate, and James Saper and Lee Holden, I've done some of his videos,
Okay.
and um, John, I can't think of John's last name, but he's another teacher on Julie's site. At any rate,
John,
very basic.
maybe is it uh, John Monroe?
No, I'm sorry. I could probably look it up real quickly. Eh, He's at any rate.
Mhm.
But for my purpose for all this is long COVID. I caught COVID in 22, and I was a very moderate but regular practicer of fitness since I was a teenager. Not a and 3 to 4 times a week. Like it progressed to basically less weights as I got older. I used to do it a couple times a week, and but I still did weights one time a week, and that would just mean like moderate, but going to all the different things at the gym and really feeling good about that. Plus 20 minutes of cardio,
Mhm.
and I had to quit running about in 2009 due to joints and so forth. But so
Mhm.
after COVID, my and I at the age of 60, after shoulder surgery on my right shoulder for rotator cuff stuff, I was able to work myself back up to 80 push-ups, 3, 4 times a week, and
Nice.
similar amount of crunches. So that was a real basic, very efficient Western, exercise in my career. It really helped me that I could do that I could stretch, do the push-ups, sit-ups, and run for 20 minutes and feel great for the day. And that got robbed from me with the long COVID. When I tried to come back to just do basic cardio, I actually started getting dizzy and shortness of breath and couldn't
Mhm.
believe it. The fatigue never went away. So I've been doing since then. My doctor, went to the cardiologist. Everything's fine with my heart. Went to pulmonologist. Everything's fine. My pulmonology is actually very good, but I still have shortness of breath. And of course,
Mhm.
no one can really explain all these things.
How
And
often does the shortness of breath happen?
it's constant. It's just there. It's just it's less a bit less capability within my lungs to breathe the way I used to. So
Is this something that you start noticing after you begin working out? So
yeah,
just daily life, it doesn't bother you. It's when you start working out.
you're right. Even if you and I start doing the deep breathing and in the abdomen, I sense it. I can sense that I can't breathe the way I used to, just trying to do a deep breath.
Mhm. And what do you feel instead?
Tightness
Where is the tightness?
in my lungs. I
Okay.
can just sense that there's feels like there's not as much capacity. It doesn't it in my abdomen. It seems like there's as much. Come through the back, it seems okay, but as it comes up into here, I can't quite. Doing the three-way breath or whatever you call it. There's not as much up here.
Fascinating. Well, that's something that would definitely be a challenging thing for any fitness enthusiast like yourself.
Yes, sir.
Um, and has it changed at all since you caught the COVID, or has it been persistent the same way for the last 2 years?
I think it's been fairly persistent. I would say that the qigong has definitely helped my ability um, breathe, and to feel better about that whole situation, just because of the whole, learning how to, well, the whole breath control during the movement. Everything about qigong has been appealing to me. I've been looking for something, but it's so gentle, and yet after doing some qigong, I get the same sense of well being that I used to get uh, after doing workouts. So that's been
Well, imagine that Qigong actually does include some workouts.
oh yeah, no question, no question. It's again not as, I mean, I'm not running, or I'm not walking or running as much as I mean, not running at all. And if I go for a walk, still, it's literally I just walk around the block. I don't do a lot of walking. So
You walk
qigong,
around the block, do you start feeling short of breath after a
yeah,
walk around the block?
yeah. During, I feel shortness of breath during, and I just don't feel as strong. I don't feel as I can feel just sort of languishing rather than thriving.
Mm. Yeah,
And
well, that's definitely something that can and should be addressed. Nobody wants to have malaise
exactly,
unless you
exactly.
live in Malaysia. So, so that's something that I would love to help you with. What other things that you would like to experience as a result of connecting with me and diving deeper into Qigong?
Well, um, frankly, I was thinking you were very kind with the offer, and I just thought I would put it off to another time because I don't want to try brain fog is another symptom, frankly. Right
Mm,
now, gratefully, brain fog, I feel pretty good right now. So I might search for words like, normal, but it's an amplified thing. When I talk about the symptoms with people, some of them sound like aging, but it's just, it seems that long COVID amplifies previous medical conditions.
I see.
So at any rate, except the shortness of breath was a real surprise. Um, the other thing, really, it's basically the other thing that was so wonderful about qigong is that I've always been interested in, when I was a younger person, the martial arts, but now it's really just the internal arts. There's nothing for me, nothing martial about it. It's about healing and energy, and opening myself to what I think this is the same route to what is real as all major religions and principles. And I feel like it's there might be spokes on a wheel, but we're all heading to the same place. And but this qigong spoke just has resonated with me in a special way also, in that
Mm.
the healing, the idea of opening myself to it and allowing and transforming, and just absorbing the energy, and all those things are very, very appealing. Excuse me.
Fantastic. Well, you're absolutely right about the spokes of a wheel. As a matter of fact, I use this metaphor a lot. And Qigong wheel, unlike what most people think, doesn't have 5 branches or 5 spokes. It actually has 6. And when we explore these branches, we come to realize that they're associated not only with distinct states of consciousness. For example, to be involved in the healing applications of Qigong requires a different state of consciousness compared to being involved, let's say, in martial arts application of Qigong. Okay, well, that's granted, but they also are associated with different energy resources that we tap into when we get into those respective states. And one of the interesting things about it is that we learn how to identify all the resources associated with all the six branches. And we discover for ourselves that those resources actually provide us access to the abilities that otherwise would be unavailable. For example, um, breathing. Well, it seems like it's a pretty obvious ability, but depending on the state of consciousness and also on a holding pattern in your body, you will experience it differently. Your voice will sound differently. You will have different endurance and other physical qualities. So basically, what we do is we learn how to tap into the proper energy resources that would correspond to the requirements of the moment. Now, that's not something that most people even consider learning in Qigong because nobody talks about that. Well, I talk about it all the time. I talk about how, in order for anything to manifest, there needs to be some energy that would support the process of that manifestation. If we don't have the ability to tap into the proper energy, the likelihood of mustering the energy that would support the manifestation of what we want is going to be much less, if not completely slim. So what we do then is we learn how to identify different energies with different dreams or different applications or different facets of this art. Most people are not familiar with a lot of facets because if they study at a particular school, they learn a particular technique. So if you study, for example, with Julie, you're going to learn her technique or whatever she learned from, let's say, Ken Cohen. If you study with Lee Holden, well, you're going to learn his particular approach and whatever he learned from Mantak Chia. What we do is we actually explore not just one or two branches of this Qigong tree or one or two spokes of the wheel. We actually want to explore them all. Now, that in a sense makes you the jack of all trades, but it also means that you get access to a lot more resources, which makes you more resourceful. And then, if you're interested in greater mastery, then it's just a matter of choosing which aspect of this art is something that you're particularly interested in or you would benefit most from at this particular point in time. Tomorrow or next year, it may be different. So let's not get stuck in a particular rut or in a particular perspective, which is unfortunately what happens when people study a singular form. If they study just one particular form, well, by definition, they're just doing that. And as they say, if you have hammer as the only tool that you have, you're going to be treating everything as a nail. And basically, that's what often happens to a lot of folks who study Qigong. They essentially don't have a lot of variety of applications, don't have a lot of tools in their toolbox. And so their results speak for themselves. And what we do is we learn how to get better results by doing something that most people never experience in the context of Qigong studies. We not only dive deep, but we also explore wide. Now, that's something that would give you the ability to find, for example, what is the energy resource that would be responsible for improving my uh, breathing capability or endurance in general.
Right.
And tapping into that resource is not that hard. And we have easy ways to do it. And once you get into that state of consciousness and develop the ability to tap into the physiological uh, resource within yourself, very quickly you find that, wow, this makes a huge difference. We want to learn how to make that huge difference, how to experience this huge difference so that there is no doubt in our mind. So we don't want to just do some particular technique or form or routine over and over and over and over again because somebody just told us to do this. We want to do things that are based on evidence. That's why I call our practice evidence-based Qigong rather than faith-based Qigong. But it also obviously means that as you develop greater skills, one of the things that you will continue doing is testing. And as you test, you may discover that what worked yesterday may turn out not work so much today or tomorrow. Something else will work better.
Hmm.
Well, that means that would be the thing to use because either the circumstances changed, or even more likely, or just as likely, you changed. Most people forget that they are coming to study with me because they want to change. Well, let's not forget it. It's actually something that we take under consideration all the time, that we experience change. That means that we need to practice authenticity. And unfortunately, that's not a very highly regarded value in Chinese culture in general. And so very few, if any, Qigong masters actually teach people how to be authentic, because authenticity means you're thinking for yourself. Instead of that, most Asian arts and Asian philosophies follow a certain master teacher or teacher student type of dynamic of relationships. The master knows better than the student what's right. So just do what the master told you and you're golden.
Mm.
So we actually learn how to rephrase or reframe that approach and discover that the master knows what's best for him or her because they tested, they discovered something that works best for them. That's what made them masterful. But it doesn't mean that the same thing is going to work for everyone else. There are different strokes for different folks. And there is only one way to find out what works best for you, by testing it. So we incorporate a lot of testing practices in our art, which obviously give you the ability to gather a lot of data, a lot of feedback. And then based on that feedback, you adjust how you do things and develop not just a skill, not just a technique, but the whole new culture of movement. That's something that I actually pioneered or coined this term, harmonious culture of movement. We learn how to move in a way that would be more harmonious than the average bear. That basically develop the ability to move in a way that some top-notch Qigong and Tai Chi masters move. But if you ask them, well, how do I learn to move like you? They often won't be able to tell you because they're not thinking in terms of principles. How is it that I'm moving differently from the way that other people move? It's more like just practice the form and everything is going to be hunky-dory. And if you do it close to the way the master does it, then you're a good student. If you do it differently, well, then you're not a good student. And what we do instead is we learn this like it's a foreign language, starting with the basics, the alphabet. And the letters of this alphabet are basically those principles I was just mentioning. And we want to test them so that we really get it, even though we know that it's going to be like reinventing the wheel. But that's okay because you'll never forget how the wheel works. If you reinvented it, it will sink a lot deeper. And by learning how to reinvent the wheel, you basically learn how to test everything and develop the attitude of constant exploration rather than exercise. Now, that's an interesting twist also. We learn how to do explorations instead of exercises. What do you think is the difference between those two?
Well, an exercise, like you said, is just try is if I'm going to do when I did push-ups, I was always concerned about am I doing them correctly, and I might be able to do a lot, but are they really efficient and all that kind of business? Are they really the best way?
Mhm.
Exploration sounds more like what I found in qigong, which is be aware of my body and be aware of the energy and be aware of how I'm interacting with what I'm doing, so that the to feel, to get the sense of whether it's um, putting me into harmony and putting me into that sense of energy that is good that I find in it.
Hmm, fantastic. Yeah, so essentially, exploration means it's an open-minded way of diving into learning process, and that requires different state of consciousness, a learning state, rather than exercise oriented the consciousness that just basically you self-discipline yourself to do the exercises. In most cases, the exercises are not particularly pleasant thing to do, but if you have enough self-discipline, you can make yourself do it. And they usually follow a certain protocol or do a certain number of repetitions, maybe do it in a certain number of sets of these repetitions. And basically, you hope that you're going to get the positive outcome as a result of doing the exercises.
Hmm.
And what we learn is how to develop a different approach to this whole practice so that instead of doing exercises, whether it's calisthenics, like those push ups or any Qigong practices, instead of doing something because there is a certain protocol that you're trying to follow or a certain number of reps that you're trying to perform, you're actually experimenting and exploring and finding out how this works versus how that works and constantly practicing discernment.
Hmm.
Well, discernment is something that many people hear about, but very few people know how to put to good use.
Hmm.
Well, when you put discernment to good use, that's the key to wisdom. So we learn how to basically develop wisdom that applied that is applied to our body, to our energy, to our consciousness, and everything that we touch. And that it kind of creates a totally radically different way of relating to things, right? We basically develop wisdom based on energy awareness because we start paying attention to the resonance. Resonance is what gives you the sense of how good it feels or how harmonious something is,
Hmm.
just like listening to music. You like listening to music?
Sure.
You probably have some types of music or some musicians whom you can listen to for hours, right?
Hmm.
The ones that you particularly resonate with. Well, maybe somewhere at the bottom of your collection of music, or maybe just once in a while you hear it on the radio, there may be some music that makes you cringe. Well, that would be the kind of music that you don't resonate with. But obviously, those are two polar opposites, kind of like at the opposite ends of the spectrum. Most things are not at the opposite ends, they're somewhere in between. So, what we do is we learn how to develop discernment based on the awareness of relativity of everything and how we develop the ability to find things along this sliding scale of resonance in such a way that we would be able to exercise the discernment not according to some preconceived ideas of what's the right and what's the wrong thing, but rather on energy resonance. And that is what makes you authentic because what's resonating with you may not be the same thing what resonates with other people. And that's okay. Nobody's telling you you should resonate with it.
Right.
And at the same time, the authenticity also means what resonated with you yesterday may change tomorrow, and that's okay. There is no expectation that has to be the same. So basically, that resonance dispels the myth or basically reworks our decision-making process. Now imagine making decisions on a minute or on strategic level that are based on energy resonance.
Hmm.
It literally gives you access to the most intelligent decision-making mechanism. Well, who wouldn't want that, right?
Of course.
Yeah, that's basically how we make sure that our practices improve the quality of our lives.
So you were saying that really is it's more authenticity, open mindedness, and awareness of resonance versus just a discipline of doing it over and over and over. Just
Exactly. Exactly.
okay,
Because there's only so much discipline we have.
right.
And eventually, we always run into the challenge of trying to discipline ourselves to do something that we don't particularly resonate with. It's just somebody told us that we should do it.
Mm-hmm.
In many Qigong schools and styles, there is this monkey see, monkey do type of learning process.
Mm-hmm.
Just somebody is doing something online or in front of you, and you basically are trying to mimic their moves. What we learn is how to practice internal arts, where we're supposed to be actually paying attention to the inner essence of this practice, not just mimicking the moves or the forms or the appearances. We actually learn how to pay attention to the principles underlying all these practices. The energy flow that we learn how to tap into,
Mm-hmm.
and we learn how to be in the flow at will. Now, that's the holy grail of Qigong, if you ask me. Being in the flow of energy, being one with the Tao, that doesn't get better than that. Well, we learn how to do it consciously and consistently, and we turn it into a practice. Well, that practice doesn't require self-discipline because every time you do it, you experience the most profound sense of wellness and well-being. You don't you don't have to make yourself do this practice. It's more like you feel like I can't wait to do more of it. Of course, we have other practices. We have some preliminary practices that kind of build up the momentum. As I mentioned, we learn the principles as though they are like letters of the foreign alphabet. You
Mm-hmm.
know, like if you try to learn some foreign languages, some of the alphabets are so weird looking, it's hard to even tell that this curly Q is actually a letter of the alphabet. So we learn how to recognize them as such. We develop certain pattern recognition that is one of the key characteristics of intelligence. IQ is very much based on IQ tests is very much based on pattern recognition. Now, what we do is we develop not just the ability to recognize these patterns, but also then we start learning how to bring them together. Like foreign words comprise of several letters usually. Also, what we do is we learn how to bring several principles together so that they would collaborate with each other.
Mm-hmm.
Now, not all combinations work or have meaning. It's like in a foreign language, you can combine several letters and they actually make no sense.
Mm-hmm.
How do we know whether they make sense or not make sense? Well, we have to test them against somebody who speaks the language. That's one of the key characteristics or key aspects of our studies, that we test everything. And for that purpose, it's really nice to have somebody else, another human being, to test with.
Mm-hmm.
Do you happen to have anyone, friend, relative, neighbor, or somebody who you would be able to engage in some regular or irregular manner to participate in kind of testing with you?
Well, I mean, as you're talking about all of this, just one of the other things that fascinates me about this, the Tao is uh, James Saper talks about when he was in his lessons would basically talk about mix some of this stuff in. He wasn't sure how interested I was in the philosophy or theory of it, but when um, he quoted chapter 42 of the Tao Te Ching, and at first there was the one, it begat the two, begat the three, and they begat 10,000 things. So for me, it just resonated with the same principle of the Trinity. You know, there's a Father and the Son, and out of the Father and Son in Christianity, the Holy Spirit is generated by the love between the Father and the Son. That's the concept of the Holy Trinity. So I didn't see anything different there. I saw the similarities there. That again, that for me, that's what the different spokes of the wheel are. They're going towards the same thing, which is this harmony and wholeness and connection. And so when you're talking about authenticity and growth and using different things, I'm also a recovering alcoholic. So my last drink was, it'll, actually Friday, it'll be 30 years, but
Wow.
for 22 years, I've been practicing with Alcoholics Anonymous. And in that, the three essentials are honesty, authenticity, open-mindedness, and willingness. So to get honest with myself is to clean away the things that block me from being honest. And it definitely requires for me help from another person. I have a sponsor. I sponsor guys, and we help each other stay honest. I go to meetings 4 times a week. And that just helps me resonate with honesty about where I'm at spiritually.
Fantastic.
So I think that's very similar.
Right, absolutely. Basically, we're all recovering from something. We all have some addictions, whether it's alcohol or sugar or sex or whatever. Basically, what we do is we learn how to develop the same kind of attitude or the same kind of mental framework, no matter what. We don't have to
Right.
exercise these mental faculties only when we are in the meetings. Hopefully, we do this outside of those meetings even
Exactly.
more.
That's it.
And what we develop is essentially these, no, I was mentioning culture of movement. Basically, it's a new sense of identity because you are the way you move. If you move in a harmonious way, you embody that harmonious state of consciousness. Now, it's not hard to get into harmonious state of consciousness, whether you listen to some music that you really resonate with, or meditate, or go for a walk in a park. But in most cases, when people get into that harmonious state of consciousness, they don't stay in that state.
Right.
Especially if you do this sitting meditation cushion, you get up, you try to move, and if you move in a disharmonious way, you will backslide very quickly into this harmonious state of mind. So one of the things that we do is we develop the culture of movement that actually sustains that harmonious state of consciousness. We literally learn how to walk the talk, how to embody the principles. How do you know by looking at somebody that the person practices authenticity or open-mindedness or self accountability or other things? You know,
Sure.
how do you know that somebody surrenders to the power greater than their personal power?
Right.
Well, I know how to tell it because I developed that culture movement. I teach it each and every day. And one of the things that we do is not just recognize the patterns, but to integrate these patterns in such a way that our values and beliefs and other aspects of our consciousness that we consider important are embodied. And that creates a different approach to Qigong in general. It's not
Mhm.
any longer an exercise practice. It's not, I'm not teaching another Qigong style. I'm teaching a Qigong lifestyle, if you will.
Yeah, that's it. That's what we try to do. And again, it's a spiritual discipline that if it doesn't reflect itself in my life, then what good is it, right? So that's
Yes.
the
But
whole.
a lot of spiritual disciplines, and at the time when you close the book or get off the meditation cushion. And what we do is we make it so that the spiritual discipline would permeate all aspects of life.
Right. That's what. Well, that's it. That's what I'm looking for.
Well, you're in the right place, my friend. Do you have any questions about that or about anything else for me?
Well, you mentioned six principles, and is it? Well, I guess here's the thing. The healing is probably the question, because healing is right now I'm only working 2-3 hours a day at the most, and I'm close to retirement age. So I've offered to retire a couple times, and or several times actually, or have some sort of a transition phase for my role, because I don't think it's um, get justifying. I'm not justifying, the role, what the role requires, but
What do you
in a
do?
small, pardon me.
What do you do?
Oh, I'm in a small family-owned company. We have right now we have 16 lumber yards in small towns in South Texas, and um, I'm the president and COO. So the owner is the CEO, and we've got a CFO who's a brilliant woman. And
Mhm.
so, anyway, this has been for the last 22 years of my life been the best thing that's ever happened to me. After I started practicing Alcoholics Anonymous, to me, the embodiment of those principles became reflected in the relationships that have been built in that organization. We've got this small regional family owned chain in which we're thriving, literally thriving. And I try to, you know, work towards, I don't embody these things the way I'd like to, but, as best I can, live up to the principles of kindness and patience and tolerance and compassion, and bringing those actual things into the business world. And that it's amazing to the degree that I've been willing to do that, that now I'm just, it's amazing. The real quality of my relationships is better than it's ever been in my life. So I don't have any complaints about that
Well,
aspect. And it literally is I'm not a big fish in a little pond. I'm a fish in a healthy ecosystem that I love.
mhm.
And I'm a part of, I'm not a big shot. I'm not, I want to be a spoke in the wheel. I don't want to be the big wheel.
Right. Yeah, well, that's fantastic. That's beautiful. And also, I understand that you have relative flexibility as a COO. So you can work more hours, you can work less, fewer hours. And one of the things that you will notice about our method of training is that I always say, don't dedicate an hour or two to practice every day or every other day or once a week or whatever. No, let's break it down into small increments. Let's practice for just 10 minutes, 15 maximum. So let's do this several times a day, though, so that by the end of the day, you will still have practiced for an hour or two. It's just something that you did incrementally, and you will notice how much easier it is because it's a lot easier to weave that kind of approach to everything else you do in your life. It also doesn't feel like a chore, and instead, it feels like a little break.
Mm.
Basically, and you give yourself little breaks and you enjoy doing those practices that we consider more of the explorations rather than exercises. And something really amazing happens. By the end of the day, you feel more energetic than at the beginning of the day in many cases. And if anything, you may also notice that your state of consciousness becomes up to you. Basically, that's what we call self-mastery. We learn how to develop get a handle on our states of consciousness. And each of those states is represented by certain holding patterns. And each of those holding patterns is associated with certain energy centers in the body. And so what we do then is we learn how to tie together or connect those states of consciousness with a certain physical expression, with certain energetic resources that we tap into, and all kinds of other things. We basically see how everything is connected. And those different branches of Qigong, different spokes of the wheel, if you will, they also need to be in place. So we don't want to, for example, say, oh no, I don't want to do martial arts Qigong because it's just scary or just it's too much aggression. We need to know how to tap into those energy resources. We just don't have to fly that flag all the time. We don't have to use that tool all the time. Just use it when it's appropriate. And it's not just the energy of aggression. That same energy resource is also associated with a lot of other things, anything from curiosity to love. So basically, it's a spectrum. Just like everything that we learn is basically a spectrum. And then it gives you ability to fine tune your energy resources that you're using, fine tune the states of consciousness that you're tapping into as a result, how they reflect in your physical body, and vice versa. If there is some need for the physical body to be healed or to be transformed, well, what state of consciousness am I in habitually that keeps me stuck in that particular pattern? And what would be a more effective or more desirable state that would provide me a different physical experience? And that basically is such a simple, but such a transformative way of thinking that it literally blows out of water most of the mind body techniques and skills that people develop because they perceive them as forms or uh, certain drills that they need to do. And instead, we learn how to use them as ways to explore and discover something about ourselves that we didn't know before. And we do explore and experience something new each and every time we practice. Every day I practice, every day I learn something new. And
Hmm.
that is learning state of consciousness that is absolutely essential for growth.
Hmm.
So essentially, what we do is we learn how to experience this kind of exponential growth on demand because we are in charge of our own states. Now, that is something that goes well beyond what most people think of Qigong. Sometimes Qigong masters, when they hear me doing presentations about this at various conferences or summits, they actually tell me, look, why are you talking about this stuff? We don't do this in Qigong. I say, well, maybe you don't do it in Qigong because you're just focusing on doing forms. I don't care about forms. I care about the inner essence of the practice. In order to tap into the inner essence, you need to pay attention to that essence. So that's why um, I find that even those people who already have some background in these energy arts, and many of my students are already teachers of those arts, they still need to start from very basics of our practices, learn the foundational principles, see how they can be tested so that we can then build upon them something substantial, something that is not going to crumble when push comes to shove. A lot of people, when push comes to shove, think they can rely on their qigong or on their tai chi or some other disciplines, and then it just falls apart. How many of those tai chi masters tried, for example, in China or elsewhere, to stand up to somebody who actually knows how to fight?
Hmm.
Well, their ass gets beat each and every time. Why? Because they just do forms. If they just wave their hands in empty space, they never encounter any resistance. They don't know what it feels like to actually have some resistance or to actually deliver a punch, not in the punching bag, but in the physical body of a human being who's moving and also punching you back. So basically, the whole idea transforms. And I'm not saying that we will be practicing punching each other. We're learning how to develop the energetics of all of that. Yeah, some of my students are martial artists. I've been studying and practicing martial arts since I was a kid also. So that is something that I'm very comfortable with. And at the same time, we go way deeper than just the superficial appearance of martial arts. We learn inner strength. We learn how to develop the sense of our self-knowledge that martial artists often sign up to study those arts, hoping that they would get to self-knowledge. Some of my students are Shaolin instructors, and one of them is an executive director of the Shaolin Center in the Bay Area. And they're like, that's what I was hoping to learn at the Shaolin Temple from those monks, but I never did. And I asked them, you know why? I said, why? I said, because you were just doing forms. Let's switch from focusing on the forms to focusing on the inner essence. And focusing by definition means paying attention to one thing at a time. So if you're focusing on the inner essence, you're not concerned with the forms. If you're focusing on the form, you don't get to see the inner essence very much. So basically, we learn how to develop that kind of clarity of purpose that then translates into clarity everywhere, wherever you go, with that clarity of purpose, clarity of values. You feel like you align your actions with your highest priority values. And when you do that, you feel like you live on purpose.
Mhm.
Well, who wouldn't want that, right?
Yeah, basically that's it. Like you said, talk, walk the talk, aligning actions with values. um, yeah, simple, but I've found it not to be so easy.
Yes, it's simple, but not always easy. Yeah. Well, what makes it easier is the approach that we always take, taking baby steps.
Right,
Just
right,
break it
right.
down into smaller steps that become so easy that they're not scary, they don't feel confounding or dumbfounding. And also, as we travel with baby steps, it's like instead of taking leap, hoping that you're gonna land somewhere where you think that things are gonna be better. When you take a leap, you don't have any control over your destination. You don't really have any control over your journey. You can stop if you leap. You cannot turn. You're just committed to flying in a particular direction along a certain trajectory. What we learn is how to have a very different approach, how to take baby steps so that instead of taking large leaps and just often ending up leaping in the places that we wish we didn't end up being, or not getting where we wanted to go because we assumed that it's going to be the right place. We learn how to take baby steps, but they provide us much greater maneuverability, ability to navigate, ability to feel in control of our own experience. And essentially, it boils down, or it makes you feel like you're in control over your own destiny. Now, that's a powerful way to be, isn't it?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, again, similarities are amazing. Baby steps is a phrase I've used all the time in spiritual growth. It's just
Right.
again trying to practice a principle, as you say, like patience. If you can't really, tolerance can start with a baby step. Give another person the right to be wrong, well, and then eventually allow them to be whatever they need to be, and
Mhm.
true tolerance. So these principles. That's a. I'm not sure if they're similar to the principles, just the six principles you're talking about. But so, what
Well,
are
there
the
are
six?
actually more principles than six, but the six are the kind of a foundational holding patterns and states of consciousness and energy centers. Like in yoga, they also talk about chakras.
Right,
Of course, they talk about seven chakras, but the seventh one is outside the physical body, the crown
right.
chakra. So again, following the idea of baby steps, we focus on those energy centers that are in the physical body first.
Gotcha.
And that creates the sense of embodiment. And at the same time, it also connects uh, a lot of dots. Connecting the dots basically makes us feel the cause and effect connection. That's how the law of karma works. Ignorance of the law of karma, according to Buddha Shakyamuni, the founder of Buddhism, is the main cause of suffering. So basically,
Hmm.
what we do is we attempt to address the root cause of suffering. And if we know how we created suffering for ourselves or others, well, then at least we know how to stop doing it. Most people don't know how that is done, so therefore they can stop doing it or do things, something different. If we know how we do this suffering, then we can also stop doing that and do something else.
Yeah, no question. I mean, it's I get it with the attachments. It just boils down to the same things. Our step 12 is, having had this awakening, we try to carry this message, meaning carry it in ourselves, and practice these principles in all our affairs. So
That's
that's
brilliant.
yeah. So that's the idea. Is it's an endless. It's obviously these are infinite things to me that we're
Mhm.
trying to. We're on a it's progress, not perfection.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, you're actually the Shaolin gentleman that was at your conference. His I haven't done everybody's tape. I confess I didn't even look at your presentation. but um, but his deal, the little noticing thing. Oh my God, I felt that. That was like kind of what you're talking about. It's like this is what I'm looking for. Just a
Yeah.
very
Uh,
basic level.
he is the one of my apprentices who I was just talking about.
Right. Yeah, yeah. That's what I was. That's why I brought it up. Yeah, yeah, yeah. When you mentioned, yeah. In fact, I mean, I was inspired by that and what he's doing.
Fantastic. Well, we're going to do a lot more of that. And we also um, start exploring things in a practical way. So it's not just a theory, it's not just something that is nice to know. We actually want to make sure that we practically transform the quality of our lives for the better.
Exactly.
For example, with breathing, we will actually see what works, what doesn't work, why does this work this way, why does that work that way. And when we connect the dots, then everything becomes a lot clearer and decision making becomes a no-brainer.
Hmm.
So that's basically what I would like to offer to you. Um, uh, Practically speaking, there are actually two options or offers on the table.
Hmm.
One of them is to engage in a one-on-one coaching program. I do coaching from all over the world where I travel. I work with people from all over the world. Basically, I pioneered this whole profession of Qigong coaching. And for example, right now I'm in Europe. We can still do the same practices. Doesn't matter where I'm in the world, as long as we can figure out the time zones.
Hmm.
And uh, that takes form of weekly coaching sessions. Usually we meet for an hour at a time that's convenient for both of us. These times can change if necessary. If you choose to take a vacation during summer, for example, that's perfectly fine. I might do the same and we can adjust our schedules. Um, some people choose to start with just 3 months, and that would be $3,000. Some folks say, I would like to take you up on the offer of a $500 discount if you prepay for 6 months. So instead of 6 grand, it comes down to 5,500. And that's because I appreciate people's commitment. I mean, some folks actually make a commitment for a year. I've been working with a couple of ladies from the East Coast who are both physicians. And they said, yeah, I'm just going to start with a year-long program. Well, that's commitment. Obviously, I'm also going to make that also a little bit more rewarding in terms of financial commitment. So instead of 11,000, it will be only 10 and a half. And one of the things that I also do is I provide some additional materials. So in addition to one-on-one coaching, you also get access to some online courses. I produced about a dozen of different online courses, and depending on what is necessary, what the issues are, or what the interests are, I provide access to whatever courses are most beneficial or appropriate. And if I need to provide access to 2 or 3 or 4 courses, I can do that. Basically, um, it's totally up to you how much time you're willing to spend digging in. Another thing that is a second option is a basic Qidao practitioner certification program. The reason I'm talking about it is because the program is actually starting next week. And it's a 3-month long program. In the context of this program, you get access to all the materials, associated with the basic Qidao program. Video trainings, audio meditations. I've written books, so the first book I wrote actually serves as the textbook for the basic Qidao program, plus also a workbook, plus also other materials. And in addition to the online course or the materials that I'm talking about, we also have group coaching sessions. So then we're meeting rather than one-on-one, we're meeting in a context of a group.
Mhm.
Those are pretty small groups, between half a dozen to a dozen people usually, so they're still very intimate. And they also happen once a week. For this particular program, most likely those groups meeting sessions will be on Saturday mornings for you. And that's not all. Every month, we will also have one-on-one coaching. So since it's a 3-month long program, we will have one coaching session one-on-one and in June, in July, and in August. During those private coaching sessions, obviously we can focus on anything that would be particularly pertinent to you. If something during the program came up and you want to clarify that, you're welcome to focus on that. Or if something that you would like to focus on specifically related to your health or other issues, we can focus on whatever you choose to. Now, at the end of the certification program, there's also a weekend workshop that's included in the tuition for the program. For a Saturday and Sunday for 2 days, we get together. Usually I do those workshops in Portland, Oregon, but sometimes I also travel to other parts of the United States or abroad and do those workshops elsewhere. And we will meet and practice face to face, obviously, opportunity to also meet with other people in the program and practice with them. Plus, also, at the end of that workshop, I conduct initiation into the practice of empowerment, which is specifically dedicated to developing the feeling of sensing the flow of qi in and around your body and learning how to be in the flow, which is, as I mentioned, the holy grail of Qigong in general.
Mhm.
It's also one of the cornerstones or the main building blocks, pillars of the intermediate and advanced levels of Qidao practice and beyond. So basically, those are the two options, the individual coaching program or the certification program. Does one pique more curiosity than the other?
No, I was thinking, really just exploring this with an open mind, frankly, when I was putting it off because what because of where I'm at physically and mentally and all the rest of it. More about healing and getting over this long COVID in the short term before I try to put a lot of. I don't have a lot of energy, so I'd like to develop energy and healing and just enhance getting better at this point.
Okay. Well, in order to get better and focus on your own needs, I would say the former, which is the one-on-one coaching every week for 3 months or 6 months, would certainly be the more appropriate approach because that would focus exclusively on what it is that you are interested in.
Mhm. Okay. Well, we're getting close to your time, and I'll have to think about this and like I say, give it some thought.
Absolutely. I certainly appreciate you giving it thought, and let me give you a link that you can use to access that offer that I just made to you. It's
Okay.
essentially um, a web page on my site, and
Okay.
you can look at it, see what makes best sense to you, and whatever works best for you, we'll do that.
Sounds great.
So I'm putting it right here in the chat. Well,
Okay.
because the chat uh, doesn't stick around in Zoom after we hang up.
Yeah, I have to look and find the chat. Let me see here.
Click
There it
on
is.
it.
There it is. Okay. Okay. I got a screenshot of that.
You can just click on that link.
There you go.
Um,
Yep, I
Feel free
clicked
to.
on it. 3 month coaching. Got it.
Yeah, great. If you have any questions about it, you're welcome to email me back. If you feel like this is something that is going to meet your needs, feel free to sign up for it. I will immediately receive a notification about that. I will send you my confirmation that you're in, and then we'll just simply look at our calendars and schedule when we would be meeting.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Thank you
And
so much for your time.
yeah, you're absolutely welcome. And as you can see, you can also choose whether or not you would uh, make a payment in one lump sum, or you can break it into monthly payments. I offer 0% financing, so basically that kind of creates a little bit of flexibility.
Okay. Appreciate that.
Absolutely. Any questions about anything we've discussed today?
Oh, just you opened up a whole new world up. But yeah, I think what you said is, I mean, I'd like energy, vitality, all that kind of business. And I think that is in that feeling of being connected to what's bigger. And I think, in your case, you conceive it as the Tao, however you want to conceive the big thing. It's, that's where it's
Universal.
at. Yeah.
As big of a game as we can play, I guess. Absolutely. Um, that's something that obviously it sounds like you resonate with. I recognize that you are a very coachable person. Long time ago, I promised myself that I would only work with coachable people. That's why I actually have this kind of a one-on-one meetings before I even make any offers, because I only work with people who I feel like they're the right people for me to spend time working with. I would be delighted to work with you, and I think that you will experience tremendous transformation as a result of that.
Okay. That gives me hope.
Fantastic. Well, it's been good to talk to you, Matt, and I look forward to continuing our journey.
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Bye-bye.